Now, last week's acquittal of the officer that fatally shot Philando Castile during a non-routine traffic stop has some gun owners angry at the NRA for not speaking out. This is very interesting. According to the Washington Post, some NRA members were furious when the organization released a statement more than a day after the shooting that merely called the shooting, quote, troublesome, and promised that the NRA will have more to say when the facts are all known. Again, that was right after the shooting. Well, a year later, and all the facts are out. We know Castile, he was not acting in a hostile manner. He wasn't endangering the officer's life. In fact, he was doing everything right. Everything that right-wingers asked him to do. Oh, you must be incredibly careful. Do everything the policeman tells you to do, and you'll be fine. He did that, and he was still shot to death by that police officer. Now, in fact, in newly released dash cam footage, it was clear that the officer actually lost his cool when faced with a black man who had a legal right to own a gun, and had actually informed the officer of, hey, I'm a licensed gun owner. I have it. I'm not going to pull it out. I'm just letting you know for your safety and for mine. He was incredibly respectful. He followed the law, and still, of course, we had the same result. He was shot dead. Now, what does the NRA have to say about this? Not really a whole lot. Not a peep. In fact, you have Philip Smith, who leads the National African American Gun Association. He said, I haven't seen any NRA statements about this since July. Quote, and I've been reading it pretty diligently. It troubles me tremendously when I see a young man following the rules, doing what he's supposed to be doing, and there's still no accountability from a legal perspective. The chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus told the Associated Press that the jury had effectively told African Americans that the Second Amendment does not apply to them with this ruling. Now, look, I think that's a fair assessment to make. We know that, ironically, and every time we do a gun control segment on the show, and we haven't done one in a long time because I haven't really seen the point in it, I would get comments like, you're a racist, gun control is racism. Well, you know what? You're actually kind of right. Originally, it was there to stop black people from owning weapons because white people were scared. Like, oh, let's make sure the blacks don't get their guns. So, yes, that was the original intent of gun control. But now, modern attempts at gun control are actually more for a safety purpose. But it is important to note that it was originally conceived to stop African Americans from having equal rights. Now, this is, of course, equal Second Amendment rights because it makes white people nervous. Now, a writer for Slate also received no response from the NRA when he wrote about the officer's acquittal. Now, that prompted him to write, quote, if Castile had been white instead of black, the NRA would have been rallying behind him and his family since the moment of his death and fundraising off his memory for the rest of time. Well, yeah, well, that's the hypocrisy, and that's what the NRA does. They no longer represent gun owners. They actually represent gun manufacturers and their profit margins. That's why they want more and more guns to be out there. That's why they want to sell more guns. And that's why they want to actually sell fear. In fact, let's be honest, the NRA, the gun industry, has actually received a lot of fear off the, or a lot of sales off the fear of young black males. And that's, of course, driven by a lot of right-wing media. For example, you have Breitbart that has a black crime section. Also, they can gin up fear in white people of the young black male with a gun. Okay? Racism and fear happen to be endemic to their pitch. Buy guns to stop the thugs from breaking into your house, stealing your money, raping you, your girlfriend, wife, or daughter, whatever. That's their pitch. You need to go to protect yourself from the thugs. Because the thugs are coming. And they're going to rape you all. It's fear. That's the pitch. It's not so much what a lot of people claim is, oh, no, you need a gun to protect yourself from a tyrannical government. That's why you have the Second Amendment. No. Especially now that the right wing is in charge, by the way. You haven't heard a whole lot about, we need to defend ourselves against the tyrannical government. Well, Donald Trump is in charge. The Republicans in charge. Oh, suddenly you don't hear that argument anymore. Suddenly now it's all about personal protection. You got to protect yourself from the thugs. The leftists and the thugs. No, it's, you need something to protect yourself against them. That's the whole message here. Now, who are they? Young black males. Of course. Now, young black men get shot more often by police relative to the population compared to white people. and incarcerated at a much higher rate for things like drug crimes. So racism plays a pretty important part in this. And look, the reason Castile was pulled over in the first place, not because he was committing a crime, is that he actually matched the description of a robbery suspect. Basically because he was black and he was in a car. And look, the officer didn't freak out until Castile mentioned that he actually had a legal gun in the car. Then he just went crazy. Because right now, thanks to the police training, they're trained to consider anybody with a gun, but especially black men, as being dangerous. That's why, I think, at least in my opinion, Philando Castile was stopped over 40 times. Not for being criminal, but just for being black. Not to mention, of course, if you might have noticed this, when young black men pose with guns in their picture, their Facebook pages, or Twitter, or Instagram, whatever, well, everybody flips out. Oh my God, you're so dangerous. But when a white person, a young white man, poses with a gun, oh, nobody blinks an eye. Everybody thinks, oh, what a wonderful young man, what a patriot. Oh, look at that, he's posing with a gun, no problem at all. Look, and look, whether, you know, you could even have a gun, right, if you're a black person, or not a gun, or something that looks like a gun, and get shot in 7 seconds by police. That's how bad our racism problem has gotten. And that's how unequal this is. When white people have guns, nobody gives them a problem. When black people have guns, here we go. We're going to run into major problems. You could be shot by police very easily. Not even pulling the gun out. Now, some NRA members, they noticed this whole issue, and they said, hey, wait a minute, that's not right. I should believe in everybody's right to carry. I believe in everybody's Second Amendment right. In fact, last year, some of the NRA's own members had called out the organization. Now, Brian Fung wrote for the Washington Post. One person said, what do I pay fees for if you don't represent gun owners and our rights? Well, that's because they don't represent you or your rights. They represent gun manufacturers. And that's it. And they get paid handsomely to do so. Now, getting back to the trial. As described in a criminal complaint from Yanez's trial, the first moments of Castile's traffic stop ring true to Smith's experience as a black gun owner. Now, again, this is going back to Philip Smith, who leads the National African American Gun Association. So, again, this guy is a avid black gun owner, okay? Now, he said, black men are feared in the country. They put their hands on their gun and say, referring to the police, don't make any sudden movements. Now, Smith said he knows the unspoken rules of any police encounter, rules that go beyond laws or constitutional rights. He said, definitely don't move at all. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Take baby steps with the officer until they're comfortable, which is what Castile and Diamond Reynolds actually tried to do. Now, again, Diamond Reynolds, the girlfriend who was in the car, had to stay motionless while she watched her boyfriend bleed out and to remain perfectly calm. I don't know how anybody could do that, but it just shows how African Americans have it so ingrained in their heads that they could be next, that they could be shot, that they know these unspoken rules to a T, and they do them. It really is amazing and super, super sad. Now, Smith continued. He said, you know what? We should all carry a gun now. We all have that right. We're not going to let a rogue officer or a rogue legal decision sway us. Ugh. Right? So that might lead to even worse outcomes, in my opinion. But if that's what you want to do, that is your right, of course. Now, interestingly enough, on the whole thing, NRA is still silent. Now, because of that silence, the National Review's David French decided not to be. Now, look, I don't agree with anything David French has to say. He has a completely different worldview. Let me give you an example. He once wrote that it's hard to recall a political movement built on more verifiable lies and misinformation than Black Lives Matter. So, look, he is not an ally to Black Lives Matter. But in this case, he actually agrees with them, writing, whether he panicked, the officer, because of race, simply because of the gun, or because of both, he still panicked, and he should have been held accountable. He added that the jury's verdict was a miscarriage of justice. And that lines up a lot to what Black Lives Matter has been saying about this issue. So here you have the people over at the National Review saying that this verdict was bullshit. And if you were a gun owner, especially if you're an African American or a Latino gun owner who is practicing your Second Amendment rights, which you do have, you should be very, very worried about this, because this is a trend. They are actually trampling on your rights, and the NRA, who's actually supposed to be protecting those rights and speaking out for people like you, they're not doing so. Because again, they are not interested at all in protecting your rights, but protecting the profits of the gun industry, of the gun lobby. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.